Man proposes, God disposes. Thomas A. Kempis. Chapter 41. 7 in 3. There were 7 Beatles total in the 3 Beatles phases. The first phase, from 1960 to 1962, had several people come and go, joining in for an audition here or a tour there. Still, not one of them was ever a permanent part of the band except for John Lennon, Paul McCartney, Stuart Sutcliffe, who got the name Beatles from a motorcycle gang in the Wild One, George Harrison, and Pete Best. Pete had considerably more on-stage drum performance hours than the total of all the other Beatle drummers, Ringo included, but did not look the part. Others were connected to the group, but these entertainers were the only Beatle members of the first phase. Phase 1 Beatles was a club band that endured with these 5 underpaid performers who never cut records. They built up a following, but not beyond those few areas where they performed. That grueling grunt work prepared the way for a much easier ride in the 2 phases that followed. Most of Phase 1 was in clubs in Liverpool and Hamburg. As they got their first recording deal, not too long after Stuart Sutcliffe's fatal brain hemorrhage, the group, as ordered by George Martin, ousted Pete Best in favour of Ringo Starr, mostly because Ringo looked more the part. A new drummer and the advent of their recording career marked the band's entrance to Phase 2, 1962 to 1966, which rocketed when they toured North America in 1964. Paul's death, 2 years later, revolved them to Phase 3, 1966 to 1970. That is when I stepped in for him. Paul's death put an abrupt end to touring, since I did not look like, sound, or act like the authentic Paul enough to pass for him in live performances. Being a few inches taller was no serious problem in photographs we could crop, but would look different in relation to the others, with each of us in their old stage positions. Paul was several years too old to undergo a sudden growth spurt, as I've discussed in some other chapters. Phase 3 never did tours or sold concert tickets. Having to learn Paul's peculiarities was another reason we did not tour at first. Of all the adjustments, the hardest for me to learn were Paul's left-handedness, especially with his bass, and his deceptively difficult high eyebrow habit. The raised singing brow mattered while we had hope of live sessions, but the closest we got to it was our rooftop performance and the Our World broadcast. For these engagements, we each had our own mic and stood apart, making the height difference less obvious. Our version of the Beatles in Phase 3 was primarily that of a studio band, which I had done before. As each of us needed help, we would either get it from the bandmates or hire others to do it. It really didn't matter if the other Beatles were in each song. Each of the 3 phases is marked by distinct band members with their own distinct work. Phase 1 did clubs, Phase 2 did albums and tours in every commercially attractive country, and Phase 3 did studio albums. Each phase paved every new avenue for the work to come. My Paul success in Phase 3 was possible largely due to all who did the work before. Thank you, John, Paul, Stu, George, Pete, and Ringo. I, Bill, am the 7th Beatle, the last but not the least of all Beatles. Those 6 set the world stage for me. Without them going ahead, everything I do and am would be Paulless. I would most likely still be a nameless session musician. My soul would be lacking without Paul. This gig of a lifetime has become my all. Remember the 7 stars, not merely 4 or 5. These 7 distinct spirits comprise the single entity, the single band, though divided over 3 phases. Though divided in time, each one, nonetheless, made a contribution to the whole. Our successes in Phase 3 and beyond justify the hard sacrifices each member made before. The work of those I never knew in Phases 1 and 2 helped me still. Mentioning that we were 7 in all, rather than merely a well-known 4, is important for what will be following in Beast references. It's interesting to note that although we were a total of 7, everyone thinks of the Beatles as only 4. Hence, although the Beatles are a band of Fab 4, we are rightly of 7 heads, speaking collectively. This beast with 7 heads is the same beast that has 4. Although some of us outshine the others, we are the 7 stars. Before you scream that I've committed some blasphemy in so saying, let me say that although it coincidentally lines up, I emphatically call it a joke in the chapter of the beast. I am merely taking this opportunity to mention the paradox that the 4 are 7, and we are all stars. The 7th is the greatest. All right. Having made that point, I also wish to make the point that I, Bill, am the 7th sun in this line of suns. I am the 7th star, 7th spirit, 7th angel, or 7th whatever we were in this line of whatever I am or of whatever we all are. Yet, however 7th, I'm all 6s to McCartney's 9s. Now, here is another point to count. We sang 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7